Winter holidays may be over, but for me, the ink vent marches on. And with that, today we're taking a look at Diamine Yule. Quick side tangent before we kick this one off. 2022 ended pretty rough compared to previous years with the channel. Sorry about getting infrequent with the uploads and such. This year, I'm gonna turn that around. This year, I promise 1,100 word scripts, a metric butt-ton of Diamine inks, and at least 18 random interruptions from my dogs. Okay, back to normal. Deep breaths. Okay, let's look at the ink. This is number 2 of 25, and honestly, a pretty good follow-up to Diamine Bliss. In fact, if the KPIs hold up, this could very well be the top ink for me in the brown category. So much so that I'm really hoping Diamine does what they have in the last couple of years and release these ink vent inks in bigger bottles so I can pick one up to add to the collection. Yes, I think it's that good. Anyways, as Yule is early on in the ink vent, it comes in one of these smaller 12ml bottles. I can definitely confirm that this is not fat pen friendly for filling, which I would consider to be the only real drawback on the 30ml and 12ml bottles. The openings really don't accommodate wider than a 9.5mm section, and the bottle depths means that you're only really going to get halfway through the bottle before needing a syringe or other filling method to keep going. Also, as I flip the bottle over, you can see there is a lot of particulate here. Long and short of it, even though this is a Diamine ink, and most likely well behaved, these shimmer particles are not going to be dry feed friendly, and I guess that really does it for the bottle overview, so let's get started with the KPIs. Starting with the ink blot, I like what we have going on here. The lighter shades have a nice sepia feel to them, and the darker mids have a caramel fading into a coffee brown look. And then there's the shimmer. There's not as much a good look at the transition tones as there is just a field of glitter. The particulate size seems to be pretty good, as I haven't had any clogging issues. And while you aren't going to get the obscene amount of shimmer on display here while writing, you will still get a pretty good amount. Moving on to the dry times, this is actually backwards of what I was expecting. I used the same pen, same drag times, and same wipe method, and yet TR is the quicker drying paper. On TR, we're looking at 15 seconds for page turn dry, as we are on Rhodia. But as we look at the Rhodia sample, you can see that we are taking 25 seconds to be fully dry. This is unexpected, but since TR happens to be my paper of choice, it's still a win. Now, the water test is a test that can make or break an ink for me, or at least give me a good amount of pause when it comes to which scenarios I can use them in. So, as we get water on the page, we do see a little bit of color lift that is actually quite concerning, and for very good reason. Once water is off the page, what is left? Well, it's not that much. This type of ghosting layer recovery is extremely difficult, if not entirely impossible. Paper type, soak time, well, they're both going to directly impact the ability to make out what you wrote. So with that in consideration, this ink is relegated to journaling and not much else. And that brings us to the writing sample to see where this one is going to fit in. This week we are starting off on Rhodia. Out of a broad nib, I'm noticing this ink is sitting primarily in the caramel browns with the occasional fade over into coffee. Also, when it comes to shimmer, I find that this is more exaggerated as I switch over to print. In fact, I prefer this ink in print when writing on Rhodia. This combination gives me more of the color profile that I prefer, and a good amount of the shimmer particles coming through. Speaking of those particles, I don't find them to be inhibiting the flow or lubrication in any fashion. This is one of those things that I've really just come to expect from Diamine inks. While I might not like the shade of some of their offerings, the ink behavior seems to always be on point and pretty consistent. And that brings us over to the Tomoe writing sample. Much like with Rhodia, formal script is going to be mid-caramel that borders on mocha with a heavy coffee vibe coming out when switching over to print writing. I should probably clarify that I drink dark roast coffees that have a dark umber and hickory vibe to help give a better idea of why I say coffee on the color profile here. Much like on Rhodia, the shimmer is much more pronounced in print than it is in formal script. It's consistent enough in this behavior that I'm quite comfortable saying if you want a good dynamic range in the deeper tones and want a fair amount of shimmer, use this ink in a broader nib with print writing on any paper you please. Just don't take this ink into a workplace and expect good results. And yes, even with the hiccup on the water performance, I feel perfectly comfortable adding this ink to my collection in large bottle form when Diamine eventually releases them. And that does it for our look at Diamine Yule Log. If you liked that video or found it useful, then hit that like button, get subscribed, and I'll see you in the next one.